Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, of all the dinosaur documentaries that have ever been created, none I think have got such a horribly negative reaction as Jurassic Fight Club. If you look up Jurassic Fight Club on YouTube, literally the first thing that comes up is an essay, a video essay, talking about how bad the show is. And they're absolutely right. This show has got almost every single trope on it that annoys fans of dinosaur shows. So much so that it almost seems a bit, I don't know, almost untruthful to refer to it as a documentary. It's that bad. I mean, for a start, it's on the History Channel, which must be one of those poorly named channels of any TV station ever. I mean, half the stuff they do isn't history, like dinosaurs, for example. That's prehistory, and some of the history they do tends to be kind of like Nazi alien shark stuff. So first of all, it's got that going for it. The second thing, obviously, about this show is that it has absolutely, I was going to say terrible CGI. The CGI itself's not terrible. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's sort of mid-tier. But obviously, they show a lot of dinosaurs that did have feathers without them. Their excuse was that it was just too hard to animate, which is, I mean, I suppose it's kind of an excuse, isn't it? But it seems a bit, well, lazy, let's be honest, to create a dinosaur show without sufficient budget for showing dinosaurs as they really were. Not to mention lazy. But I suppose I kind of give them a little bit of a pass for that. And finally, it just has all the really annoying tropes that sort of bad dinosaur shows have, like dinosaurs roaring all the time and killing everything in sight. And it also, the other thing that's a bit strange is they have talking heads on this show, and yet most of them don't actually seem to be paleontologists. There's a paleontology expert of all things. I kind of thought when I first saw this show, what makes a paleontology expert different from a paleontologist? And I thought, hang on a minute, a paleontology expert? They don't have any qualifications, do they? That's the big difference. What separates me from, say, I don't know, a professor at Cambridge or Harvard, is the education. And that's kind of sums this show up quite a lot, I think. So you're probably thinking, great, that was a very short video. He didn't like the show. Next video on YouTube. No, I absolutely love this show. It's so funny. A lot of videos on YouTube seem to hate this show, and I absolutely understand why. Because it has all the annoying tropes on it that I just mentioned. It's very lazily put together, and it has one of those narrators. I mean, American documentaries tend to enjoy having those gravelly voiced narrators to a great extent anyway, so certainly far greater than British documentaries that tend to have posh British people, generally posh British men, who say things like, and now the Allosaurus will go hungry. In the American version, it's now the Allosaurus will go hungry. But the point is, this show is just so funny. Even it's like I would describe it as kind of like dinosaur fan fiction. So obviously most dinosaur documentaries are kind of based to some extent anyway on scientific accuracy, on scientific evidence. They'll find something like, for example, like a bone with some tooth marks in it, and try and work out how those tooth marks got in the bone. So I mean, there's some very good examples of this. So like Planet Dinosaur is a great example of that. So is The Truth About Killer Dinosaurs, where they go to great lengths to try and accurately recreate the sort of the prehistoric world. And they don't get everything right, obviously. I mean, you can go through those shows and sort of nitpick little features, but you do get the sense when you're watching them that the people, in charge of the documentary ultimately wanted to tell the truth, and they ultimately wanted to make something that was both exciting and interesting to watch, but also as scientifically accurate as they could possibly make it. Obviously, they slip up now and again, but they have other constraints as well. So I can, and somebody who is not a paleontologist, is not even a paleontology expert, I can watch it as a casual viewer and enjoy it. This show, on the other hand, feels like they kind of made the scenario up first, then tried to justify it. Now, there are a few bits in it I do actually genuinely think are quite good ideas. For example, the bit with the Majungasaurus cannibalism, where a male Majungasaurus kills a baby Majungasaurus and then to try and breed with female to try and basically bring her back into sort of don't reptiles go on heat? Anyway, to bring her back into sort of receptive condition. That's actually a really good idea, and they kind of do that in Planet Dinosaur anyway, and I think they did it a lot better in that show. But it's a nice idea and one I like. The other bits in this show, to be honest, are a bit strange. They clearly trying to try and cut corners in order to get two dinosaurs to fight. I mean, after all, it's called Jurassic Fight Club. I mean, that is, I suppose, the main point of the show. Now, I suppose it's actually arguable how much dinosaurs in real life actually fought anyway. I mean, if you think about it, big predators in Africa, generally speaking, they try and avoid violent confrontation when possible. I mean, it is true that big predators, like, say, lions, will attack smaller ones like cheetahs or leopards and try and kill them, particularly if they are much younger than they are, because they want to sort of wipe out the competition. But in those kind of situations, you could argue that the cost benefit analysis is worth it. You know, they're significantly bigger. Lions are bigger than cheetahs and leopards, to such a degree that killing them is probably going to result in a fairly easy fight and ultimately very low risk of injury to, say, the lion in question. The other thing, obviously, is that lions tend to hunt in prides. There's generally more than one lion in that scenario. And the other thing that's interesting, of course, in those scenarios, if you've ever watched things like, say, Big Cat Diary, you'll know this. The cheetahs and leopards, if they see a lion, they'll leg it and try and climb up a tree or something. They don't just fight it, which in this show would definitely not happen. If they did, I don't know, a savannah fight club in the same style of this show, the cheetah or the leopard would definitely sort of circle around the line and have a go, despite the fact it's clearly outmatched and is going to die. That said, though, I do have a soft spot for this show because there is a bit of me that thinks, okay, the way they sort of direct this show is very childish and silly. But to be fair, the thing that most people watch dinosaur documentaries or shows for generally is kind of to see the dinosaurs in action, aren't they? I mean, there are very few dinosaur documentaries that I can think of which don't show dinosaur confrontations at all. Even the quite serious ones, like, say, Walking with Dinosaurs, or A Prehistoric Planet, or Planet Dinosaur. They do show those things, don't they? So, I mean, I kind of see why you'd think that creating a show around it was a good idea. And to be fair, some of the fight scenes are quite fun. The problem is, and this is where the fan fiction element of this show really, really gets into gear. Some of the scenarios are so overcomplicated, and they have the paleontology experts going through it like stroke by stroke, as if it's like a boxing match or a wrestling contest, which I know is kind of the point. But it just seems quite funny to say, and now he strikes at it with his powerful tail. You sort of think, really, in real life, even with people, real fights, generally speaking, like street fights, they're not really you can't really go through them stroke by stroke. Generally speaking, they're quite scrappy. And so are most fights between animals, if we're honest. In fact, most fights between real animals are actually over quite quickly. Not only because most real animals don't want to fight for a long time because they're worried about injury, but because, generally speaking, the upper hand is got very quickly, and then either one animal runs away because it doesn't die, or it gets killed because it's in such an inferior position. Generally speaking, they don't last for minutes or hours. If you watch two big cats tussle, generally speaking, it's like a quick bit of growling and then several slashes with the paws, and then one slinks off or one gets killed. So to me, the over the top elements to the show, they just make it all the more adorable, really. Because I'm pretty sure that most fights between two dinosaurs didn't go down like they show on the show. In fact, you could actually, apparently, you can't play it anymore, sadly, but there was actually a game on the History Channel website where you could actually play as the different dinosaurs in the show, which is brilliant, isn't it? And it definitely does play out very much like a video game, even more so than things like Monsters Resurrected does. Monsters Resurrected and Jurassic Fight Club are very similar shows, actually, although I suppose you could argue that Monsters Resurrected does at least show more than just dinosaurs fighting each other. Although, weirdly, Jurassic Fight Club actually has one episode set in the Ice Age between, I think it's a cave bear and an American lion. It's like they sort of ran out of ideas and went, oh, quick, we'd better get some more animals in. In fact, actually, come to think of it, Jurassic Fight Club is actually a bit of a misnomer anyway, because a lot of the dinosaurs they show aren't from the Jurassic. But I digress, obviously. I mean, they obviously wanted a cool name that sounded a bit like Jurassic Park. Anyway, yeah. But overall, I actually think I enjoy this show more than I should do, and certainly more than Monsters Resurrected, because Monsters Resurrected felt like it was trying to be a proper documentary. It kind of had, paleontologists. It has them like recreating models, even though some of those models are completely inaccurate, and it does feel like they were making an effort to be scientific in this show. They're clearly not. They don't get most of the dinosaurs don't look right. They make multiple inaccuracies about the time periods. Even the name is wrong in terms of time period. They just want to show dinosaurs fighting. And I do kind of respect that in a weird kind of way. This is not a good documentary by any stretch of the imagination, but if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching clips of it on YouTube because it's really, really funny. So yeah, I hope that was a vaguely enjoyable review. If you like this channel, feel free to subscribe. There's obviously you can click the notification button below. You can also follow me on Twitter if that's something you're interested in. There's a link on the video description below this particular video. So yeah, feel free to subscribe if you feel like it. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.